Hello, movie patient, and welcome to Film Therapy. I am Brienne, also known as Miss Movies, also known as your film therapist. I'm not a real therapist, but I play one on the internet just for the show. And my guest patient today is Mr. Jeremy Jahns. Come on over, come take a seat. Whoa, I can hear myself. I need to turn that off. There we go.
That was weird. I heard you twice.
That was really
That was
weird.
really neat. I like that. I like that kind of lag. It was cool.
That really scared me.
We're here for
actually.
therapy. This is how therapists hold their microphones, by the way.
Is
It's like
it?
elbow on the knee, and you're like, hello.
I just
to
realized
see
that
you.
I got text messages from you that came from like an hour ago.
Your phone sucks.
Just now.
Your phone
My
sucks.
phone is having some problems today.
Okay.
So hey Ben. Ben Bellevue is in the chat. He's the one that I asked you to tweet at. So there you go. Anyways,
Is that like Bellevue, Washington? Or is this just like a name?
just a name. I don't know. Maybe he'll let us know.
There is a Bellevue, Washington.
So, anyways, here's how this show works. It is a storytelling show. And what I do is I ask my patient, which is Jeremy today, 3 questions. What is a film that inspires you? What is a film or a scene from a film that triggers a memory for you? Perhaps it's painful, maybe it's happy. And the third one is, what is a film that helps you through difficult times? So, before we get started, I want Jeremy to tell us a little bit about himself. I'm sure you probably already know who he is, but just in case you don't.
I'm a boy with a dream. There's nothing interesting about me. You have to know that by now. But we
Oh,
want to
right,
know, like,
right,
just
right.
So, like, I mean,
My name is Jeremy Jahns. I used to live in Seattle, and now I moved down here to Los Angeles
It
so
was-
I can do my channel and be on Collider Movie Talk.
that's right. I moved down here to work when I was just sitting at home not working. But well, what there's to know about me is, I mean, I've always loved movies. I've always loved games, as you can see behind me.
Mhm.
This is the fabled Blu-ray
Yes,
movie.
this is the
Like
exclusive.
people are like, oh, we've never seen your collection. It's pretty much right
There it
behind you.
is. I am the first one to see this collection. I
that's
feel very
right.
honored.
It is true. I just started talking about movies at a point one day, and then I just did it on YouTube as a hobby, and then it just kind of grew from there.
Mhm.
And then I learned at about 11,000 up to 11,000 subscribers, people love you no matter what. And then after 11,000 subscribers, people are
Sweet.
like, I don't know if I like. Can I curse?
Yeah.
Is there a cursing
yeah.
the capper? Okay, so after 11,000, you get a couple people who are like, I think this guy's a dick, and you're like, what
Wait.
did I do? So before
So
11,000,
everything's sweet and
it's a
up
sandbox,
to
man. We're all just
11,000.
building sandcastles, singing la di da, and then after that, you start getting the trickle of people like, yeah, fuck that guy, and you're like, oh,
Aw.
that's different. And then like, I mean, then there's like a percentage. So for every 11,000 people, we'll say there's like 2, and then it builds from there. But which builds to hundreds.
Every next
But-
10,000
right.
adds on another
It's
a-hole.
exponential. But yeah. I mean, I have a positive outlook. So a lot of your questions, like, well, is it a happy or a sad? I'm like, I will say happy because I like being happy. Not that it's all sunshine and rainbows, but
Right.
like I try to twist things into positivity somehow.
People
which is-
probably want to know also how we met.
Yes, we met because we actually met at an Outback Steakhouse.
We did.
And
That's right.
It was Outback, you're right.
Wait, was it an Outback? No, it was definitely
I
like
thought it was
a
Outback.
restaurant at Universal City Walk.
Yes, and I'm
But
very sure.
I already knew who you were before then because you had been on my first podcast, which is
Yes.
called Miss Movies Minute. You might be
right.
able to find it still on iTunes.
Audio. Man.
And we had at least, I think, 2 episodes, maybe. We definitely had one
I do
where I
remember.
interviewed you.
Yeah, I remember you were asking me about scores,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, yeah, well, my scores that I came up with, and I was talking about my scoring system. You're like, no, I mean scores, and you're talking about musical scores, and I'm like, yeah, well, I thought Awesome-tacular was.
Yeah, so then I just kept going.
And you're like,
after
fuck
that.
it, this guy's never gonna get it. And so we just kind of, you're like, and it wasn't until like weeks later that I was like, oh, she meant musical scores, and then I knew I completely destroyed. Yeah, I'm sorry, that episode was my fault.
It's all right. It was a good episode still.
As long as it was
episode.
good.
But basically, I just reached out to Jeremy to be like, "Hey, come on my show," and you said, "Cool,
Yeah.
you'd do it."
Yeah, because you're fun and you're cool and you're fun to talk movies with. And so, I mean, if for nothing else, I'm boring. I know this,
Stop.
but you're interesting and you're fun to talk movies with. So absolutely, it's always a pleasure. It's always a blast.
It is a blast. What else is happening that you don't know? Is there are dogs that are upset with us right now?
Yeah, I had to put Gypsy in danger. She's really going apeshit right now. Like I had to
If you
put.
want to bring her out, that's fine by me.
No.
It's up to you, whatever you're comfortable with.
I
So.
love how she is like like she is not stopping. She just bark, bark,
Mhm.
bark. But if people walk by my front door, it's like glass, and so she'll go nuts. And it's an apartment, and so I was like, she's just gonna go ape shit, and I'm gonna have to stop her. Whereas if it's
Yeah.
muffled, she's just gonna melt down and lose her mind. But it will be quiet enough so we can do the show. So it really is a what do I do? So I kind of chose my path, and I'm gonna write it out. Unless you guys can hear it. Can you guys hear that?
I don't know. It doesn't show on the soundboard, so I'm assuming that they don't. But let us know,
I'm
chat.
not torturing her. I swear to God, she just really hates being. She gets separation anxiety hard, which means she's the only female who can actually stand being around me for that long.
Oh,
And so
okay.
when she's gone, like she just goes nuts. Like
Still not registering.
no dog noises, they say. Just my neighbors will hate my guts, but it'll be fine.
Maybe. So let's get started then.
All right, let's do it.
Here it is.
I feel
First
like this is a
question.
quiz. All right.
Question number 1. What is a movie that inspires you? Let's look at the Blu-ray collection.
Let's
I
you know what's
see
funny
some
is
Ninja
I just saw
Turtles.
Straight Outta Compton. That's probably one of them.
Okay.
Like I should say things like Braveheart, but movies that inspire me, I have to. There has to be an element of something me in there, and I'm nothing like William Wallace. So I do nothing about.
Who is really
Right,
Yeah.
and like I'll never liberate a country, or so I can't, like, it's inspiring, but personally for me, things that inspire me are things like Steve Jobs with
Okay.
every one of these answers is going to
With
be
Ashton
multi-answers.
Kutcher?
No, that is just Jobs.
Okay, got it.
That was hand Jobs, and then there's Steve Jobs.
Was that Fassbender or
That's Fassbender.
Cumberbatch?
That's right.
Okay.
It's Fassbender. And but things like that, where it's like it's kind of a tech world, and he had hopes and dreams, and he was like, I want to change the world. And so in some like a very small way, I'm like this dude on YouTube, like, yeah, tech and shit, and like cameras, and yeah, sure, let's do that. But Straight Outta Compton really is kind of one where I watched, and again, these dudes. Granted, that there are bits of their history, they're like, let's not show that in our movie, and I get that, but the movie in and of itself is one where these guys come together and they're like, hey, let's do this thing. And I find that kind of stuff inspiring for me in a world where that's as like big as my world could ever get, like like if it's someone saving a country, I'm like, good on you, but that doesn't hit me as much as a personal story about someone who just kind of has his own aspirations and achieves them. So that's where I lean towards.
So you more inspired by like Steve Jobs. I mean, the things that he's done
than William Wallace
is pretty crazy, though. It's not big. Like just a little
that's why I threw Straight Outta Compton in there.
Okay, because that's a little bit more.
Then again, like Dre like sells like Beats by Dre for $1 billion. I'm like, that's probably more than I'll ever have. But it really, but that's the thing about the movie Steve Jobs, is what it did is like took this dude who was like this huge icon and then brought him down to the level of this like personal person where you're like, yeah, like I get all the stories where you were a dick, but like kind of understand, because you see how he's just kind of messed up in the head.
A lot of geniuses have difficulties just in life,
Absolutely.
Like socially.
And every time I irritate a person, I'm like, maybe you're a genius, Jeremy. Maybe that's all it is.
That is what it is.
That's just life is perspective. As long as you can keep things in your own little world of delusion, I think it's just a happier way to be. My dogs are going nuts.
Do they go through in Jobs like his parents and him growing up, or is it just starting? Because I know it's like different segments of like one big thing that happens, right? So, but they don't go back into his.
No. They stay in the pocket of it really is a few segments of him right before he does this huge expo and things he's dealing with. But they do link it and weave it business wise into his past, but never goes into Steve Jobs' parents were like this with him or anything like that. So it was nothing like that.
That's going to be the sequel.
To
this biopic.
That's the Ashton Kutcher movie, and it's not as good.
Oh, well, it's so interesting how things come out like kind of in twos, because those were really close together. Ants in A Bug's Life were close together. Like,
Yeah, like there've been games like that too, where it's like, oh, this video game is coming out with parallel to this video game, and you're like,
mhm.
it's kind of the same thing, but one will do it better than the other one somehow, you know?
Always does.
I felt like I had to pick a side when Ants in a Bug's Life came out,
And?
and I picked Ants because
Oh.
I have no, it was just at the time I was in like high school.
Okay, so
Judge me not
you
too hard. So
decided,
it wasn't like
alright.
last week or anything like that. I just
Okay.
thought Ants was really cool. And then it was like Bug's Life. I'm like, no, and then I saw Bug's Life later. I was like, that was good.
Yeah.
but like at the
Bugs Life
time,
versus Ants. Ants is a little more existential.
right?
It's
Well,
like, okay, Woody Allen,
yeah,
thank you.
you know the funny thing is, so I get it, and I don't think like a lot of people have that like Marvel versus DC, this versus that mindset, and I'm always like,
Mhm.
you shouldn't be like that, but I have to remember at a time I was, so I totally understand that people are like that, but you know that you don't have to
Yes.
be. So I'm a lover of all. What can I say?
It's not, we don't live in a binary world. We can like more than one thing.
We live in the world of the X Files. That's what we live in.
We do. You
I love
can't
that.
see it that well. I'm not adjusting
Yeah,
this.
don't judge. It's perfect. We're perfectly framed.
We are
Right now.
perfectly framed.
My hair is taking up 90% of all of it. But yeah, I saw that box set. I was like, oh, I have to have it. I have
Of course. Let's get into the second question, which is, what is a film or a scene from a film that triggers a memory for you? Perhaps it's painful, perhaps it's happy. Apparently, you don't experience pain, so it's got to be
You
happy.
know what? Is there, it's funny that threshold between pain and happiness is like it's this weird razor's edge sometimes. And there
Mhm.
was a movie I was just walking, Gypsy in Danger, stewing about things like this.
Jeremy's Children, for
They're
those that don't
they're
know.
as close as I'll ever get, barring a very big accident. But I was all right. Generally, memories for me are like that time I saw Predator, and that was awesome, and that time that like
Right.
they're very
Sure.
superficial things. But the movie that I will probably cry at every time is at the end of American Tail, which is that threshold between happiness and sadness.
Oh
Is
man, you gotta break it down for me because it's been a long
It's
time
been a long
since
time
I've
since you've seen
seen
American Tail.
American
Don't worry, it's
Tail.
been
I
a long
mean, I
time.
know the song.
This is one of those moments where it's been a long time since I've seen it too. And if
Uh-huh.
I saw it again, maybe I'll be like, I shouldn't have used that. That movie's not that good. I don't know, but I remember it being great.
Okay, so.
But when like spoiler alert, like Fievel finds his family again, and they're all
Mhm.
like, he's like Papa, and then his dad like can hear him, and he's like Fievel. He's running trying to find Fievel, and they meet. And he says Fievel, and Fievel says Papa, and they slam and hug and drop in the water. And I remember just like I was 18, I was like, meh.
Wait, you were 18?
Well, it was not the first time I saw it. Like I remember the
Oh,
last time I
okay.
saw it, I was like
Okay,
18
got
years
it, got
old.
it, got it.
And but I was 18, like I was like a little like high school douchebag. I thought he knew everything, and then
Mhm.
so I saw it, and I was like, and I remember being a kid, and it was still sad, and the music's good, and so that's like a
Yes.
memory for some odd reason because like I'm a really family oriented person,
Mhm.
and so anything that really like deals with family and a close niche thing, like that's always like another one. Like if you want like a funny moment that I will drop on the ground laughing every time I watch this movie,
I wanna
like
know it.
every time I watch this movie, is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Okay.
When they go in between the semi, have you seen Planes, Trains?
Yes, of course.
They go in between they're driving on the wrong side of the freeway.
Mhm.
They go in between these two semis, and these semis and sparks are flying, and
Mhm.
they're screaming, they're like, ah, and I mean the mirrors get taken off, sparks are shooting everywhere, and they turn into skeletons with their hats, and they're screaming, and Steve Martin looks over, and John Candy looks like the devil. He's going, ha, 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 ha. And then they break, and the trunk flies off the back and just rips the. Anyhow, every time I see that scene, I am in tears laughing. And every Thanksgiving, my family and I, we watch that.
Mhm.
And we watched it just last year. And
And
it's
they're
on.
like, "Is he gonna do it? Is he gonna do it? Is this gonna happen again?
Yeah,
Is Jeremy gonna be crying on the ground right now?
I'm
Right now?"
waiting for the moment that I just watch it. I'm like,
Yeah.
and it
Oh, that was funny.
hasn't happened yet. I
Huh.
laugh so hard every time. Like every time I watch it, I'm laughing talking about it. It's so good.
That
You
is a
guys
good
have
scene.
seen
I mean, the
American.
whole movie is great.
It is the great. It is better. Like every time I see it, because I'm a little older, and I've learned nothing because I'm me. But like, I hopefully am a little wiser.
Uh-huh.
And but you learn something new every time you watch the movie. Now you appreciate something
Yeah.
else. It really is a really sweet movie. And every time John Candy talks about his wife, I'm like, oh, it
That
really
is, it
is.
is kind of
It
sad.
is a
And
sad, happy movie. But again, with that threshold of sadness and happiness. And so like you kind of pull from the sadness threads, and then you give them
mhm.
laughter and happiness, and it really makes the happiness better and sweeter. which is the genius of what John Hughes did a lot of times, like
Right.
Uncle Buck and all this. Um, yeah, so I really love that moment. So those are moments of like, oh, sad, and another moment of crying again, but for happy, like really like belly gut busting laughter.
I was just thinking a lot of movies, like as you rewatch them at different phases of your life,
Mm-hmm.
like you notice
Yeah,
different
that's Planes,
things.
Trains, and Automobiles. Definitely, that's one of those
Right.
movies where yeah, you. What's yours? What's a movie where you watch it
Gosh.
again? You're like, oh yeah,
I mean, Breakfast Club, definitely. There's
nice.
certain parts where I'm like,
Yes.
I didn't realize like how abused Bender was by his
Yeah.
dad. Like as a young kid
Right.
watching it when I'm like 12 years
Yeah.
old, I don't understand that. And I
Absolutely.
don't understand. I understand now the teacher,
Mm-hmm.
like, and and from his perspective too, because I'm an adult. Now
Right.
I'm the adult
He just
in the
frustrated the shit out of him.
situation.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, it's that whole dialogue between the two of them. And he's like, it's not the students
Yeah.
or that have changed, or it's not, you're the one that hasn't changed or
Right.
whatever.
He's
And
just
I'm
like
just
this
like,
stubborn
oh
dude.
my
Right.
gosh,
I'm
totally true.
This is basically a John Hughes puff piece, by the way. But no, I'm telling you, but the Breakfast Club is good because I remember watching the Breakfast Club for the first time. It came on TV, and I was in elementary school, and I
Okay.
watched it. I guess because we had 3 channels back then, or 5 or something.
What happens?
Every kid on the bus saw it that night, so we're all talking about like, oh, Breakfast Club, yeah. And he goes like that, it fades to black. It was really cool. We didn't know it was called Fade to Black. We're like that, and it ends. That was just so cool. And then
The freeze frame.
yeah, right. But but you think that's gonna be it, and it's done. And then I'm gonna watch this again in high school, and it means more, and it does. And then you're like, okay, there's no more I can learn from Breakfast Club now because I'm out of high school. There's no more, right? And it's done. And then you're older now, and I'm like, I'm like, there's nothing these darn John Hughes and nonsense. And then you watch it, and you're like, oh no, I've learned more. So that's the thing that's like a specifically John Hughes thing. He literally has something for every like decade of your life, and you just don't know it. You just have to get to that decade and watch his movies again, and you're like, oh shit, Ferris Bueller's Day Off is not just about skipping school, but if you want to see it that way, it really is a cool like take you back to that moment. I remember
Ferris Bueller. I mean, the parts with Cameron, I'm like, this is really Cameron's story.
Dude,
I honestly believe that Ferris Bueller's Day Off is Cameron's story.
Absolutely. Like when he starts melting down on that car, you're like, and then like Sloane wants to stop it, and Ferris Bueller stops him and is like, let him fuck this car up. And he does. Yeah. He just gets it all out. I remember I just watched it not too long ago, and I was like, oh my God. It really is like it hits you in a different way. And I remember when I was in high school, we were talking about Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but we didn't know like teachers could like it too. And so we were like, Ferris Bueller's Day Off is like the coolest movie ever. And I remember the teacher at the time was like, that is one of the best movies ever. And we were like, what is he talking? Does the principal know you feel this way? Like you didn't know what to say.
I sometimes wonder, like, because I used to teach first grade and I taught fourth grade. First I taught.
Did you really?
Yeah, I taught it for 6 years. I was probably teaching when I did the podcast with you.
Oh my God!
And so I wonder, like, my first class is now in their senior year of high school, and I wonder like if any of them like are watching this or like see the things that I'm doing and are like, what are you doing, Miss Crowley? Like, what's happening? Why are you on camera? What is this what is going on? You used to teach.
Yeah, well, you know what, she's still teaching. We are teaching you now. These are the real lessons of life. Right. It's totally. This is church now. This is real teaching. We're molding the minds on YouTube.
And then I'm like, am I that teacher in Varsity Blues? Like, is this what this is?
Yes. No.
I
no.
mean...
Yeah. No. X-Files. That's what I
Oh, I do it. There is a former student that's like an Instagram friend of mine, and like she'll like some of my photos sometimes. I'm like, oh God, why is she? Why did I post that? Knowing she's gonna see that.
That's amazing. I actually I'm friends with one of my former teachers. Like she was the best teacher I ever had, and I've told her this. I'm like, you were literally 4th grade with the cap of cool teacher.
4th grade is the best.
There was something about it. I danced with her at her wedding. She was like, I had a super crush on her, and I was like, yeah, I danced with her at her wedding. We were dancing. And that's how I still dance. That's how I still dance, by the way. But I said that it was kind of like my life was a perfect storm of supportive people. Like my parents were really supportive, and because there are
Mhm.
people who will. I know people who are like, "Hey, I have this thing I want to do online, and it's kind of a YouTube
Yeah.
thing," and their parents are like, "That ain't right. Get a job." And then
Right.
so they really had to grind through it. But my parents were like, "That's really neat," and it was like a perfect storm of that. And I was like, and I had supportive people in a phase of my life because fourth grade is, that
Mhm.
means elementary school. We were little sponges back then. We soaked up everything, and she was like one of those teachers who was like, "What do you want to do?" I have no idea. I wanted like I don't know. I just like video games. Like then you should
Huh.
find a way to do that,
Yeah.
Jared. And so she was like super cool. And so I had other teachers down the line that were not so cool, but I always remembered
Mhm.
her. And I was like, no, I think she was smarter than them, and obviously she was. So good job.
Aw.
So
Yay,
yeah.
teachers.
Yay, teachers. Good
I was just
teachers.
thinking of like what movies would I show my kids? I definitely showed them like Fairytale Theater. Do you know Fairytale Theater? By Shelley Duvall. It was a series on Showtime. It's like doing like Rapunzel
Oh,
and
cool.
I'm sure they had a Beauty and the Beast episode, but tons of like Molly Ringwald was
Oh,
in one
neat.
and like there were definitely like stars of the time that would come and do this. Like it was like Circus of the Stars or something, but it was for these fairy tales.
Do you
Super cool.
do you want to? I have this is a story in a high school. It's a psychology class, and in my psych class, the teacher he was gone. We had a substitute, and someone brought in Happy Gilmore. That was it. And
Of course they did.
he was like, "Yeah, we're gonna watch Happy Gilmore." And the substitute teacher was like, "No, we're not. We have things to do." And I was like, "No, no, no. The Mr. Riopel was his name. So if you guys have Mr. Riopel, awesome." And I was like, "No, Mr. Riopel was going to show it to us today as a metaphor for anger control and impulse control and anger management." And I just said it like that, and he was like, "I think this kid's serious." He was like, "Okay," and we watched Happy Gilmore all day
Oh
long. And
man.
then Riopel came back. He's like, "Okay, some of you thought it would be funny to do nothing, so you have like twice
Yes.
the work today." I thought it was hysterical. We watched
Mm,
Happy
I
Gilmore.
may have done something similar with Can't Hardly Wait.
Really?
I won't lie.
That's awesome. You have to, man. You had those poor substitutes.
Poor
Just want to do
substitutes.
good. They're like, I want to be a teacher. And then there are kids like us
Hmm.
who just we didn't.
He was
You know,
supposed to show us what's the movie? You Can't Handle the Truth. He
oh,
was supposed
officer.
to
No, no, no. It's A Few Good Men.
A Few Good
That's a
Men.
good
He was
movie
supposed to
though.
show us that.
Yeah,
But I was like, I got this movie. Why don't we just watch this? And
you know
he's
what we
like,
were doing?
okay.
This is what we
It's
did for
terrible.
the substitutes. We made it to where they didn't have to work as hard that day, so we were doing a service to them. That's the way I say it.
Yeah.
That's my way of saying it. What did I say about delusions? Yes, here we are.
All right, let's get into our final question, which
Final thought.
is what is a film that helps you through difficult times, even though you might not have any? Or what is a film that makes you happy? Since if you don't have difficult times,
Well,
Jeremy.
no, I mean, I'll let you know. Like, I mean, well, shoot. I mean, even like in the recent moving of to California, something I said I'd never
Hmm.
do. I was like, I'm never moving to Los Angeles. By the way, but it was a
Right.
really big move. And it's like a big move stacked on top of a lot more work I have to do. Which is kind of why I did it because I
Yeah.
was like, hey, let's kind of like if you do the same thing for 6 years, you start not a you want to sharpen yourself up and so anyhow,
Hmm.
but it is a hard one. So one that actually, um, I have actually behind me on Blu-ray, The Burbs, generally speaking, is a movie.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. This will all
Uh
make
huh.
sense in about a second.
I'm excited.
Is well, I grew up in a neighborhood very much like that, and there's this funny thing is I watched The Burbs recently, and I didn't realize because I hadn't seen it in years,
Hmm.
and I didn't realize that it is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. It's like one of my favorite comedies
It's
out there.
pretty great.
Has to be. But in a neighborhood like that, on a cul-de-sac, I grew up on a cul-de-sac. There are all neighbors, and all of them whisper to each other when one goes by, like, "Ooh, so and so did that thing yesterday." And
Yes.
there's always that one weirdo. We had the weirdo in our neighborhood,
Hmm.
and it like the cops came a couple times for that person because they're the weirdo. But I watched The Burbs, and it kind of just literally it immediately shuffles me back to like a comfort zone
Hmm.
of a world where I'm not like 1,100 miles away from what I find comfortable. And I'm kind of like, because I definitely I didn't live in the childhood neighborhood now when I left, but there is something to be said about a movie that just kind of just takes you right back to a place where you're like, oh, okay, like the gravity of everything that I'm doing down here isn't so big, and I can just kind of relax and go, oh, that's right, that thing I find happy. And it takes you to, it's like Happy Gilmore in his happy place, where like, there's like the pictures of beer and the, like it's just like
Always
that.
great.
And the
She's in a
fact that the
negligee.
right
Oh wait, that's the mom on Modern Family.
is it really?
Julie, I can't remember her last name, but someone in the chat will tell me.
That's really funny. Yeah, I'll be right there. But yeah, I mean that's a good one. Again, with Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, like anything that makes me laugh. Like my thing will be a laughter movie for different reasons. Like if I want a movie that shows me like the fun of wonderful Vegas debauchery, you know what, Hangover, you're going in, and I'm watching you, and I'm going to love that. I love that's a great movie. That's like
I love
such a great movie.
I had like the best theater experience with The Hangover.
Really?
Like everyone was so into it that I was like, this is I want to take this theater experience and apply it to every single film that I've ever seen.
That that happened with me in Straight Outta Compton.
Because it was like a concert. Everyone was like, yeah, we're into this.
People were singing along with the music.
I love it.
And this dude was right behind. Usually I hate it when people talk in movies, but this dude, I remember when Dre was walking at the end, and Suge Knight was like, what are you going to call that bullshit? And the dude behind me goes, Aftermath. And Dre goes, Aftermath. And I was like, that guy knows. But like everyone was so excited. They were literally singing the soundtrack while it was happening. It was like, I remember like the same thing happened with Mamma Mia with old people. You know, like I worked.
It's not a good movie, but it's got great songs.
Yeah, great songs, and generally a lot of people in there can carry a note. Some of them should just be James Bond. But some people in there can carry a note. But no, Mamma Mia, I worked the projection booth. You would look down there, and all these little like white heads, all these little old people were like bobbing and like singing, and they were in the aisles, and I was like, that is like an event happening down there, So like anytime you can put music in with entertainment and it hits people like in a certain way and usually strikes their past, they're having a good time at the movies. And it's like you can't go into a movie like that. I actually think the Mamma Mia thing was like a special event. Like, oh, they had like the little ball doing the sing-along thing.
I love those sing-alongs.
Yeah, and so anytime you can hit people like that, man, it's just, when I was watching Straight Outta Compton, it added to the experience of me liking the movie. And then I've watched the movie a few times like later, and I still like it.
Have you seen La La Land yet?
No, I want to. I genuinely, because that came out this weekend, and one of I think the La La Land, it's easier to like get screeners for those things now, but it's right down at the AMC, I think. But
what? I'm going.
I think. Don't quote me on that. They might be playing at the Grove, which is, I didn't know this about Los Angeles. Everything is time now. Like where I like
everything is time. Like how far? Yeah.
Yeah. In Washington,
distance
it's 5 miles away. And
You're
here
like,
it's
that's 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's like a 30-minute drive. I'm like, no, it's 5 miles. Like it can't be 30. It's 30 minutes, folks.
It's in minutes. Yeah, definitely, and it changes for the time of day. So.
Have you seen You have not seen La La Land?
I have not. I want to see it.
I've heard really good things about La La Land, man. I feel like I can't do a top 10 of the year before I see La La Land. Like it's just kind of like in all fairness, right? And so, but I do like a good musical. I really do. And I mean, not like. Don't make it too cumbersome, make it good, enjoy it. And the thing that old musicals had over new musicals is that it seamlessly went from the dialogue and the narrative right into the music, and you didn't even notice the changeover. And when they try to do it now, you're like, that's where the song hit, you know what I mean? And so I heard La La Land actually does it really well, kind of harkening back to the old times.
Here is a movie trivia schmodown question for you that I will just give out.
For me?
Sure. Okay. If you know Mamma Mia.
Okay.
What is the name of the group that Donna has, like that she sings with?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Donna and the
Jets?
No.
Everything's the
Donna
Jets.
and the Jets.
Jets. I was gonna say ABBA. I was like, ABBA, of course.
They are Donna and the Dynamos.
I wouldn't
that
have
one's
gotten
hard.
that.
That one's hard.
I would not have gotten that.
Keep that in your pocket. That could come up on the schmodown. I'm not joking. It could come up.
See, that's why things like that. People are like, you would crush on the schmodown. I'm like, I'd probably get my balls kicked in, honestly. Like I like retaining knowledge, like liking something, loving something, even knowing a lot about something, like is different than retaining knowledge and being able to pull like Dumbledore, just that information and throw it in the pensieve and be like, oh, that's exactly what I need. It's a different it's a different thing.
Yeah.
Your brain can collect all the information at once, but if you can't just like pull it when the
Yes.
pressure's on, it's a totally different
That's
thing.
the other thing. Like when they ask for an actor and you see the face,
Yeah,
and you're
and you're
like,
like,
wait a minute, what's the name?
yeah, and you're like, oh, Gary Oldman, that was his name. I fucking know his name. Why couldn't I say his name? Yeah, so that's the whole thing about that. That's why I'm like, hey, as much as I love disappointing people, I'm just saying, so it is because I'm also bad with directors. Like I'm horrible.
Oh.
I'm horrible with directors.
We don't need to talk about like what things we're not good at in case we are on a schmodown of which someone will have to pick our category.
right. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. We're just giving people ammo. Don't want to do that.
Well,
Poker face.
I think that is it for our therapy session for today. So thank you so much for joining me. Where can the other patients that are in the waiting room or chat find you?
I love that. It is genuinely like therapy. I do love that. You can find me on YouTube at Jeremy Jahns. Same with Twitter. Same with Instagram. Where sometimes it is selfies and pictures of my dogs. That's my Instagram and my hot toys collection. And on Facebook at Real Jeremy Jahns, because someone stole Jeremy Jahns.
Wait, what?
Someone took my name. It was before I was like big enough to steal my name. Like it was like someone was just like, I'm gonna steal that guy's stuff, and so now I don't have.
But are they actually named Jeremy Jahns?
No, it's like a Jeremy Jahns with my picture, but it's not me.
So it's like the real Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I had to do that. That's exactly what I thought of. I was like, no, they're like the Ghostbusters with the big ape. And I'm like the Ghostbusters with Pete Venkman and Winston.
Slimer.
Yeah, and Slimer and the Stay Puft and all those dudes. Yeah, that's exactly how I handled it. I was like, well, it worked for Ghostbusters, so I'm going to do it that way.
Awesome. You can find me this Tuesday on the Schmodown for Team 6 Degrees versus Team Trek. That's on Collider. Maybe we'll win. Maybe I will puke in the corner. Maybe I don't know. I
don't think you'll puke. I think you will do fantastic. And if for nothing else, if you're stumped, just answer X-Files.
Okay, I'll remember that.
That'll get you nowhere. That's what I would do if I were on there. Like, what's the name on Mamma Mia? I'll be like, and the X-Files. That's the
Donna and
name.
the X-Files. All right, and you can find me at Miss Movies on Twitter and Miss_movies on Instagram. I had to get that underscore because you know
someone stole your thing. Someone stole it.
That's right. I think it might be my husband took it and then
he's like
never gave me the password for it.
On it like
no one's there. You look at it, it's like, what? Hello. Anyways,
I stole it. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I was going to charge you money.
Now I
for
should
it.
go the real Miss Movies. That's what I'm going to do next time. Maybe I'll change this channel to the real Miss Movies.
Treat it like Ghostbusters.
All right. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye. 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 Bye.